The platform. Step up and speak out.
The station is ZiFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hardest radio in town. The name is Larry Kwirirayi. Thank you very much for joining me on this Tuesday, the 11th of February 2020. I'm with you until 8 o'clock, and then Mona Lisa is going to come between 8 and 8:30, and then I'll come back on Health Matters between 8:30 and 9 p.m. And it's an action-packed evening, as you can see. And in the first 40 minutes, we're going to be talking about the status of the game that is cricket in this country. I've got two very huge guests in the studio. But before I go into that, my frequencies you can listen to be on in Chivu 99.8, Mashingo 96.1, Victoria Falls 106.5, Bulawayo in my hometown 106.7, and I'm broadcasting out of Harare where the frequency is 106.4. The phone lines are open, 0772 168045 being my call-in number, and my WhatsApp number being 0731 168045, and on Twitter at ZiFM Stereo, on Facebook, facebook.com/ZiFM Stereo, and you can also just look for us listen to us via our website www.zfmstereo.co.zw. So we're at the beginning of so many iterations of Zimbabwe cricket starting again. I can go to 1992, we're starting. We go to a time in 1999, we're starting with this. It kind of feels like the Zimbabwean economy. A lot of the times just fits and starts. I want to find out what's happening today. Last year, an ICC suspension that was called by the ICC based on what was termed government interference after Zimbabwe's Sports and Recreation Commission suspended the Tavengwa Mukuhlani board, seemed to interrupt what had been some momentum rather. I'm not focused on that today because that has been discussed extensively all over. I want to know what happens next. The quick questions. With the visit of the ICC chief executive today, Manu Sanhei, what are the implications? What was it for? What is the plan going forward as far as Zimbabwe cricket is concerned? And while we're still a test nation, when are we going to get to the top? Because everybody talks about the 90s, but we were kind of a test nation that was just there or thereabout. But we were never really the top 5 test nation. How are we going to get there? And what is the plan for development? That's a question that came up when I put the question on Twitter earlier. And in the studio today, I've got the Zimbabwe Cricket chairperson, Tavengwa Mukuhlani, as well as the director of cricket, former international himself, as last year he was putting on his cricket gear, Hamilton Masakadza. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining me.
Thank you, Larry.
I'm going to start with you. You more often than not referred to as Docs. I'm going to call you that. What is the mandate? Because no one has had this discussion since you were elected in June, July of last year. What is the mandate of this board after election?
Thank you, Larry. A good question. What is our mandate? Obviously, the first 4 years, 2015 to 2019, they were basically to try and clean up the ZC financial setup, so to speak. And then 2019, 2023, we are looking at exactly what you have said in your opening remarks, that we have to look at development. And what are we talking about in terms of development? You're looking at how can we get club cricket back on track? How can we get our provincial cricket to be more competitive? How do we get our academy up and running? How do we get our A side to be playing more games? How do we get to prepare our under-19s for future World Cups? So that's basically our focus going forward. Not that we are not focused on the senior national team, the current the team that we have, the chevrons, but really we are looking into the future. We need to create the pipeline, which has been eroded in the past few years.
So, given that sort of circumstances, and this is a question that came up, like you put Hamilton Masakadza as director of cricket. For many, a person who's not seen as someone with cricketing experience, especially from administrative level. And some people say, okay, was it rewarding him for standing with the board during the impasse of last year? What was the reasoning behind that?
Hamilton is just the first person to occupy that position. But, well, He's the first person to be really the director of cricket. Remember, Alistair Campbell used to be the chairman of cricket of the cricket commit. He was looking after our selection. He was looking after appointments. More or less what Hamilton is doing now. But we have really defined what Hamilton is to do, to be purely looking after cricket. It's not that he was being rewarded. In any case, Hamilton was going to retire from cricket. He's not 23. He's 30, 34. So he's a resource. Look at his ODI caps, Test caps, T20. He has what it takes to be involved in the game at that level, and we can't afford to have that cricket knowledge just disappear just like that. So we looked around and felt that we needed someone who has just walked out of that changing room, who has been involved, who has seen the highs of Zimbabwe cricket and the lows of Zimbabwe cricket to occupy that place. He can relate with the players. He can relate with the current crop of players. He can relate with some of the administrators within cricket today. So we believe he was the best candidate to have to bridge between management, board, and the players, given where we were actually coming from. You've just mentioned the conflict of last year. So he has listened, seen, and heard from all sides. So he's very clear as to what needs to be done and what is required for Zimbabwe cricket to move forward. Besides, Hamilton is not only a cricketer; he holds a bachelor's degree in business administration. So he actually has a management qualification.
Okay, coming to you, we talked about you while you're sitting there, and you're just sitting there awkwardly like, okay, I feel like a naughty school child, and the parents is like, what have you done? Okay, my question to you, Hamilton, is during that period, just going to make reference to that period in which there was an impasse between the government, there was references and some leaked papers, and also your own public letter that you wrote, later that was publicized, that you sent to the minister. You talk about fissures within the team, whatever they were based on. What has been done to unite the team since then, especially given that some people have been like, oh, he's retired, good riddance, and oh no, he's now going to tell me whether I have a contract or not.
Yeah, I think as you rightfully mentioned, there were a few issues in the changing room for a while there. But I think, like you said, the biggest thing that we basically tried to do and Doc emphasized on was to just get everyone to move on from that. Obviously, not to completely ignore what had happened, but to not stay in the past, if you may. For guys to just bury the hatchet and move on and concentrate on the job at hand. And I think that's happened quite well, and the guys are starting to gel quite nicely once again. So, yeah, the biggest thing has just been for the guys to concentrate on the job at hand and to just concentrate on doing what they do and doing what they love most, which is playing the game. So I've really been impressed in terms of just the general vibe in the changing room, the general attitude. Guys have really put what happened behind them, and guys have really moved on and are looking to the future.
So I know a couple of players, an interview, a public interview, that a press conference, Sean Williams, for example, made reference to the fact that more than anything, it was the fear that in last year this game was going to be gone if nothing drastic was done. How much of that, as opposed to personality issues, has made it hit home that people need to come together, and as far as cricket is concerned?
Yeah, again, that's a very, very good point in terms of when what was happening behind the scenes. I don't think people really realized the full implications. I mean, we're still feeling some of the implications of what happened now, even though it's been resolved. So, as you mentioned, the biggest thing was the fact that the game was really under threat. And to just go around now, especially in the high density areas, and to see the number of people that are playing the game, the number of people that love the game, the number of people that are actually supported by the game just throughout the country, and to then imagine that could have been taken away from all of them is really heart-wrenching. And even some of what was lost in terms of what the ladies missed out on, in terms of what the guys missed out on as well, in terms of the T20s. So just to see from that angle where the game was really under threat, I think that really also served to galvanize the guys. Once everyone really realized what was at stake, people then realized that it was time to just bury the hatchet and move on, like I mentioned. And I think that was the biggest thing that brought guys back together again.
And finally, on this particular topic, there were people that were, even on social media, that are players and ex-players and so forth, that were quite vocal of their criticism of you. How have you created that, how do you start coming back from the kind of position? Because someone will be like, I'll go to grade school, and then kind of be like, I'm done. How did the conversation happen?
So for me, it's always been something that I've had to deal with in my career. I like to liken myself a little bit to John Cena with the way people view him. Some people love him, some people not so much. So it's always an up and down thing for him. So for me, it's been one of those things where because I started so early, I had a lot of guys that took to me straight away. But then obviously throughout the career, some people would have been very critical and then saying we need to move on from this guy. So it's one thing that I've had to deal with throughout my whole career. So it's something that I was really used to, and I just always used all of that to keep myself going, keep myself motivated, and took some of the criticism when it came and learned what I could from it, but then basically just focused on a little bit more on the guys that were encouraging and the guys that were behind me, and I think that's how I just managed to get through all of that.
0772168045, that's my call-in number. My WhatsApp number being 0731168045. And as a rounding off of this, because I want to get straight, you touched on it as far as developmental aspect, Doc. The relationship. People always ask, what is the relationship now between the government and particularly the ministry, as well as the SRC, as well as Zimbabwe Cricket? Are we going to expect people to pull in the same direction now, or are we just waiting for the next situation to blow up?
I think the relationship between ZC and the Ministry of Sports and the SRC is good. And then let me take an opportunity to put this in context also. We resolved quite many issues within ZC, along with the Ministry of Sport and SRC. I mean, when we did the Zamco deal, we were together with the SRC and Ministry of Sports. When we hosted the qualifiers in 2018, we worked together with Ministry of Sports and the SRC. So from where we stand as ZC, we never had a problem with the Ministry of Sports. We never had problems with the SRC, and that position remains so. However, what happened last year is unfortunate, and I think in the process of trying to resolve this issue, we have to a greater extent found each other, and there's much better understanding between the parties. We remain confident and compliant to the statutes. We report to the SRC and we report to the minister as and when we need to. As a matter of fact, this afternoon I was with the minister and the SRC chairman, together with the ICC CEO, briefing them and updating them on the happenings within the ICC, where the ICC wants to take the game, where they look, what they are looking for from Zimbabwe's point of view. So yes, there's a good working relationship. What happened last year is unfortunate.
ZiFM Stereo is what you're listening to. We're going to take a quick break. And I said I want to focus on development. I want the person right now in Chivu listening on 99.8, might be 8 years old and playing cricket and thinking, is there a future in this game? I want to know if the gentleman here can convince me there's a future in the game. There's a girl out in Kariba who wants to be the next Chipo Tiripano. She's thinking to herself, is there a possibility for me to go through, or is it going to end with the girls that performed so brilliantly last year? She wants to know if there is a plan, because if there's a plan, then I can convince my mom and dad that I should take cricket seriously. ZiFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town.
Local music on your station of choice.
Have you seen my Joanna? I'm away, my moon away.
One station.
Baby, can I be your man?
Play it loud. Proudly Zimbabwean. The platform. Step up and speak up.
The station is still ZiFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town. You are also listening to me or watching me on our Facebook or Facebook Live. Just go to facebook.com/ZiFM Stereo. See the action in the studio. You can see Hamilton continuously smiling. Don't know if that's nervous or is just this John Cena face, but you did make reference to that. You kept it open. And just you, I want to start with the director of cricket for Zimbabwe Cricket, Hamilton. We talk about development, and it's been talked about in passing, but very, very often we don't get many details. For example, what's the issue around deepening development? Especially, for example, we had a youngster from Chipadze school, but is he the last one who went to the under-19 school tournament? How we deepening development in the age groups, especially as well as women's cricket?
Larry, that's a very good question you ask, because I believe that's the basis of the game in the country, that development. I mean, our crop or our group of players basically came in through the development structure and through a development program that ZC set up, and it brought through so many players. So it's a very important part of what we do. It's a very important part of keeping the organization going. And for us, the biggest thing is to just keep spreading the game to the masses. So that means just continuing to take the game to places like Highfields, places like Chitungwiza, places like Emakandeni, so which is something that's been happening. And also in conjunction with the school system, which I still believe is quite strong. And we're still bringing a lot of people through our school system. So I mentioned Chitungwiza. We've had quite a few guys coming through. Two of our boys that have played 3 under-19 World Cups, both came from Chitungwiza. So there's a lot of good work being done there. And as I mentioned as well, the school system has actually been very good, and it's just something that we're looking to continue to build on. And it's the start of our pathway, basically. So the more we can get that right, the more we can get all the people involved, the more we can get. And especially another thing that we're looking at is to just try and keep the coaches as well that we've had at that development level, because oftentimes what happens is those coaches do well at that level, and the private sector identifies them and sort of then employs them and takes them away from there. So that's another thing that we're looking at, to just try and make sure that we keep our coaches there, and that we don't lose all the work that they've done and all the talent that's there. So yeah, our development we take very seriously, and that's from the guys' perspective. That's where we start. Then from the ladies, we start a little bit higher, because they're still just starting, and you saw the success and all the work that they did last season with very little support. And again, that's another thing that we're taking seriously, and we're improving. We've already started a program of getting them a little bit more cricket and getting them involved in domestic cricket. They didn't really have a provincial setup, but now they're going to have one. They're now going to have also an under-19 setup, and then they can also get a few more players from that level. So I'm really excited about that. And even their coach, we've now got a dedicated coach that just focusing solely on the ladies. They're actually getting into a program now as they start their preparations for their next qualifiers. We're actually meeting tomorrow to finalize a few things. We're going to have a totally different technical team. We're going to have a totally different selection panel. So this is all exciting new things that we never had in place for the ladies, but that we're starting now. And as I said, we're basically looking to give them a lot more support. And the ICC has also helped in that regard, in that it's also increased its scope in terms of what it does in terms of the ladies, in terms of the tournaments they have. They've basically put more resources into the ladies game. They've basically also just tried to get their program mirroring what the guys have as well. So in terms of the ICC, they've also been very supportive, and in terms of us, it's something that we're taking very seriously and we're really excited about.
So you mentioned provincial cricket. Is that provincial as in the provinces, or is it going to fall under the franchise system? So are we going to have an Eagles ladies team, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's going to be the provincial setup, but what was previously the franchises, which is exactly what we have for the guys as well. So we don't call them franchises anymore. They're now provinces. So we've done away with the franchise system.
Okay, so in essence, we're going to see a women's Mountaineers team, for example, and a women's Tuskers team and Rhinos team and things of that nature.
Yes, definitely, which is going to give them a lot more game time, and which is also going to provide a much better base from which to pick the team from. And like I said, it's going to be a lot more cricket for them. And we saw what they did without any of those systems or any of those structures in place. And now with having that in place, I'm sure they can only go to higher levels from there.
So you also mentioned that the under-19 levels. Speaking specifically about the women in this instance, I also talk about the young men in terms of under-19. Is the under-19 team, are they just going to come out of the school system, or are you going to create a league for them as well?
The under-19 team, what we have is basically the school setup. That's the way we've always had it, and we've never really had a club system specifically for them. But through the school system is how we then pick and look after our under-19s. And the guys that sort of show put their hands up a little bit early, we incorporate straight away into the domestic system, even from that under-19 level. So guys like Milton Shumba had already played in the domestic setup before they went for this last under-19 World Cup. So on that level, yeah, it's basically the schools. They're the ones that feed into the under-19 system, and then that under-19 system then feeds into the provincial setup and the academy and beyond.
And looking at that and coming to you, Doc, we look at the success of this big Tavengwa Mukuhlani, because you just joined us now, the Zimbabwe Cricket chairperson. The system that you look at what Bangladesh did and saying in getting to the point where they won the under-19 World Cup, there was a very deliberate idea around how they were going to, have under-17s play this way, have some of them playing List A cricket at a very young age. Is there such a plan? Because in Zimbabwe with the school system, can you get, for example, Emmanuel Bauer was shown a lot of promise to come in and play 4-day cricket at some point if he's got promise?
Thank you, Larry. I think you have said exactly what we have been discussing this afternoon. To say we need to be focused as Zimbabwe Cricket, and that focus, we need to look at our low-hanging fruits, and the under-19s is one area that we have identified that we can focus ourselves, give ourselves a 2-year program that will prepare these young lads to be ready for the World Cup. And yes, to answer you directly, yes, we are putting in place a program for the youngsters to yes, they play at schools, but they need specialist coaching. They need to be looked at. Those that can participate in club cricket, we have them there. Those that can play in our provincial sides, we have them there until we get to a point where we think we have got a good core group that will represent us in the next World Cup. And of course, nothing can surpass good preparation for any tournament. So that program, Hamilton and his team will be certainly running with that to make sure that we are well prepared in the next 2 years for the World Cup.
And in that context, some of the things that many people look at is say, look, even you look at players from other teams, you got young players already at 17, 18 who can bowl at 135, 150, even 160. Do we have the coaching in place for that sort of thing? That's to start with. And if not, what are we going to do about it? And this is not just for the young players, but also even anyone who's making their way up to international cricket.
Yes, Larry, we definitely have programs in place to also improve our coaching department. We've already identified a few guys that are sort of coming to the end of their careers, a few guys that have already been in the system. So we're basically going to be developing those guys, helping them along with their coaching badges, and also getting them started in terms of their coaching. And I think the more coaches we can have, the more access we can have to developing those guys at those levels, and the more we can sort of catch them a little bit earlier and get them to where they need to go to when they do get to the senior levels. And it's been very exciting seeing the development that we've already had in the under-19s, seeing the way that this current group played down south. We're really excited with the work that was done there, and we're really excited with what's been coming through. So just to support that, like you said, it's very important to also get the coaching and getting that right to be able to support them.
0731-168-045. Let me read a couple of messages. Great to see Hami, Stewart and Prosper being hands-on and developing the game. Are we going to see the Taibu back in the structures? That's Jakilo. And read a couple of others, then you can respond. Someone says, come back here, says, what are we doing to retain lost talent? This is Tinashe Shawa, and you made reference to provincial games for under 14-19. You already spoke about but lost talent, and then is there any program to reach out to lost talent? So it gives examples of Muzarabani, Jeremy Ives, and a couple of other players.
Yeah, I think on that one it's a bit of a difficult one to try and chase the guys that have been lost. I think what we can do as an organization is to focus a little bit more on the guys that are still here, on the guys that we still have at our disposal. And the more we can get those guys right, and the more we can get those guys playing to the standard that we need them to, the easier it will be for us to attract the guys that we've lost to come back. So for me, it's more an element. It's a question that I've been asked as well about the actual under-19s. So we always lose a few under-19 cricketers as soon as they're done with their school, as soon as they're done with the under-19 World Cup. But I don't think we can really do anything at the moment to stop that. But what we can do is strengthen our local game, strengthen our actual team, so that the guys will still see that there's something to come back to. The guys will still see that the game is growing, and then we can also then end up having situations of guys coming back like what BT and Kyle did, and hopefully we can also entice the likes of Blessing back into the structure as well.
0731-168-045. Okay, there was that question around Taibu.
I mean, the door is always open. If there's an opening where we believe you can play a role, ZC is for everyone. Look, we actually pursued a tender to come back to cricket. He had said he was done with cricket, but we followed him up and brought him back. I believe, like I said, the door is always open. If there's a role that he can play, surely, why not?
0731-168-045 to get in touch with me. While I'm looking at the messages, what I did want to ask is, there had been talk, and this is coming to you, Chair. The ICC restructuring that had started in 2017. What is the update, especially looking at issues such as franchises becoming more independent, especially around funding? And what is the latest on funding? Because there's been talk about funding hadn't come through yet, and there was cut in funding and things of that nature.
Soon after the disturbances last year, ICC, as you are well aware, stopped funding. And after the October board meeting in Dubai, the sanctions were lifted, and of course, funding was supposed to start. We have had to put a new system of how we remember we are on controlled funding, so we've had to put a new system to review our performance with the ICC, and that system is running now, and I believe mid-February, around end of February, normal funding will resume. Yes, there's been a reduction in our distributions from 9 million to 5 million, primarily to it's a temporary measure, as I've said, and we've taken cautionary steps to make sure that we don't go into deficit by applying austerity measures. Staff and players will take 30% cuts on their salaries. ZC has never had a reserve, and it's important that we create that reserve over time. And part of the reduction is to create that reserve for Zimbabwe Cricket. So it is not as if ICC has reduced funding and that money has been lost. And for those who have followed, if you check between 2015 and 2019, we managed to reduce our expenditure to be able to operate within a budget of about 7.5 million per year, which was not thinkable before. So that was achieved by reducing our cost centers, dealing with the way we procure, dealing with our salaries, and I foresee ourselves again being able to fit within the $5 million dollar budget which we are having, and it's only for September 2019 to October 2020. Then thereafter, normal funding resumes.
Okay, just looking at another question here. Cricket venues, that's one that's come up. What are the plans regarding cricket venues? Because this day and era, Harare Sports Club does not have floodlights. And how far have there been plans for cricket venue in Victoria Falls? And also issues around television broadcasting. Why aren't we seeing our international domestic matches on TV? Because the recent concluded test series was not televised. So issues around the cricket venues, Harare Sports Club, not having floodlights, the Victoria Falls one, there was a groundbreaking, and as well as about broadcasting. What's the response on those?
The floodlights, the masts are there. For those who have been to Harare Sports Club, you would have seen that the masts are there. The lights are there. What remains?
Okay, when you say the lights are there, where are the lights?
They are within the country. They're actually in a container at Harare Sports Club.
So the lights are sitting at Harare Sports Club, yes, and simply have not been installed.
And the masts are there. It's the installation costs that were prohibitive, and when you do a cost benefit analysis, where do you put your money? Do you put your money in installing the lights, or you try to get the organization run? And further to that, you cannot use those lights without backup generators. You need to have backup generators because they do draw quite a bit of power. Those backup generators are not there. So once we are liquid enough, we get the backup generators. We are ready to install the lights. So to answer you directly, yes, the lights are there. They just need to be installed, and we need the backup generators. The Vic Falls ground, it was a good project, but we were instructed by ICC that you can't be holding land, and yet you have so much debts, you have got so much loans, you have to let go so that you pay off some of your debts with the banks, and that's exactly what we did. So we'll need to start again to talk to the Victoria Falls Council to look for new land that project is dead and buried for now. It's no longer in our plans. And what was the other question?
Televised television stuff, really.
Okay. I think the listeners and the fans will have to understand that we only make money when we play India. That's when you actually make a profit. Every other series, you struggle to break even, and then the rest you make losses. And to produce one test match, it costs you to produce 2 test matches that we played against Sri Lanka. If we had gone on TV, that would have been 300,000 to produce that, versus no income. Because this is how it works. When we produce, we then send the product to, say, Sony, who is our broadcaster, and Sony has to pay us for them to show that on their TV. How much does Sony pay for a test match against Sri Lanka? 50,000 US. And how much is it to produce 2 tests? 300,000. So you're already in a negative 250. And it's not only the production that we're talking about. It costs around 35,000 in terms of hosting costs to host the Sri Lankans to be in Zimbabwe per day, in terms of hotels, in terms of this, and another 40,000 in terms of production. So you're looking at around 70,000 per day to actually run a test match. So when you do your cost benefit analysis, you are better off live streaming than being on TV for those loss making tours or series. And then when you have your India, which you are going to make a bit of money out of it, you then have it on TV, because then you are paid well. You can cover your production cost. So the cost of production is very prohibitive. It makes it very difficult to be on TV. And to compound our problems is that the TV rights contract that we had was not covering the production cost. In most of the boards, the TV rights would cover the global rights as well as the production costs. So when your broadcaster is paying you, he's paying you for your rights, for your sponsorship, and for your production. So then you're covered. We are I guess the only board in the world which had a contract which was not covering the production. So it was quite prohibitive for us.
When does this contract end?
It has ended, and we are now negotiating a new TV site.
So the rights have now reverted again to Zimbabwe Cricket at the moment.
Yeah. So we are in the process of renegotiating that.
Okay. I'm gonna have to call you after you come from Bangladesh. There's loads of questions. Hamilton, can I hold you on to that?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to call you. Doc, can I hold you on to that after the Bangladesh series?
No, not a problem.
So you're off on Friday for the Bangladesh series?
The boys are off on Friday.
Yeah, I mean like the team.
Yes.
Tavengwa Mukuhlani, the Zimbabwe Cricket chairperson, as well as Hamilton Masakadza, Zimbabwe Cricket Director of Cricket. And just, in fact, I'm going to give it to you, ask you this question, Hamilton. How excited do you think we should be about the future of cricket, say, for the next 24 months, and as far as where we could end up being as a test nation?
I think we should be really excited at just a few snippets of what happened in the Sri Lanka series with all the new guys coming through, and with some of the senior guys as well putting their hands up. I think the future looks bright for Zimbabwe, and as I mentioned earlier, all the guys that are coming through from the under-19s, all the guys that are coming through from the domestic structure, all the changes that have been done, and with the new selection team coming on board as well, I think it's all positive, and I think everyone watching and everyone behind Zimbabwe Cricket should be really excited about the next couple of years.
Okay, so I'm back in about 31 minutes. Mona Lisa's coming in for the next 30 minutes, and then I'll be coming back with health matters. I'm going to be having an update on the coronavirus with Dr. Portia Mananganzira, who is, of course, with the disease control as far as Zimbabwe is concerned. If you want to find out where we are as a country in Zimbabwe, I know a lot of questions coming in. Do tune in at 8:30 p.m. You're listening to ZiFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hardest radio in town.